there, my name is Kelly Dale with Off the Beaded Path BeadStore.com. Thanks so much for joining me today as we're going to be learning how to make a slender diagonal peyote bracelet. I'm working on a new project that'll hopefully come out later this fall, and I realized that I had never showed any sort of diagonal peyote on my channel. So there are some beautiful, beautiful versions of diagonal peyote that you can find on the internet, and a lot of them are wider versions, but I wanted something a little bit thinner that I could showcase some of my different mixes, like Delica mixes and things like that. And this bracelet is perfect for that. So for today's project, you are going to need 2 colors of a size 11 Delica bead. You're going to need a main color, which is going to be the color you see the most, which is where I like to use the mixes, different mixes that I might have. And then you're going to need one that I call the spine color. That's going to be the color that you see all the way down the center. In addition to those 2 colors of Delicas, you're going to need about 4 yards of your favorite beading thread and a clasp, as well as a size 12 or 11 beading needle. So let's go ahead and get started. So as you can see, I already have some samples made for you to see. This one is using one of the black and white mixes that we have in our online store. And I've used black for that center streak down the middle. It has a magnetic closure, although you can use any type of closure that you want. It has a very nice and secure magnetic closure to it. This one is one that I love. It reminds me of a cornucopia in the fall. It also reminds me of Fruity Pebbles, to be honest with you. But I really liked this one, and it has a really pretty copper plate in the center. And again, I've used a magnetic closure, but you can use whatever type closure you want. The one I'm going to use for the sample today is a purple mix, and I've used a metallic teal up the center to really make it pop. And it's very thin, very, very thin here. If you look at it, to give you a kind of estimate, this is a 10 millimeter bead here. And so you can see the width there of the piece. So it's going to be about a 10 to 12 millimeter in width. It's not very wide at all. And if you stack it, it'll stack really good with other bracelets as well. So go ahead, grab your beads, and I'll be right back to get started. To start, I have my needle threaded with about 2 yards of thread. If I go by the pattern, which is available on my website, the main color, the color you're going to see the most of, is color A. Your spine color, and if I grab my sample here, so my purple here was the A. The spine color is the B. So A and B here. I also have just grabbed a random bead off my tray. This is going to be my stop bead. So I'm going to take, and I want to make sure that I leave at least an 8 to 10 inch thread that I can go back and add the clasp with. So I'm just using a random bead to be my stop bead. So that way it'll stop the beads from falling off as I start. So I'm going to take the mix here, and I'm going to thread on 4 A beads, 2 B, and 5 A. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So again, 4 A, 2 B, and 5 A. So even count, odd count on this side. And we're going to let this drop down. So working back towards the stop bead, I'm going to pick up 1 A. I'm going to skip the very last A that I added, and I'm going to go through the next A. And when we do that, we want both those beads to sit on top of each other, just like normal peyote stitch. And I'm just going to pull that thread up so that the beads meet the stop bead. Thread on 1A, skip an A, and go through an A. So now we have 2 little peyote stitches. Let me get that one back straight there. There we go. Okay, so we have those 2. So now thread on 1A, skip 1A, and go through the B. So it's that first B there. So far I have 3 peyote stitches with the A, and I am coming out of a B. So now I'm going to thread on 2 B's, and I'm going to go through the very next B. So I'm not going to skip anything, and I'm actually going to turn it this way so I can work down. So I'm going to go through the very next B, and when I pull it tight, now this will form into a V shape, and these 2 B's should sit on your previous 2 B's. We're going to thread on an A, skip an A, and go through an A. And finally, thread on 1A, skip an A, and go through the very first A that you added. It should be right there at your stop bead. So now when you finish the row, this is what it should look like. So working back in the other direction, so we're going to the other side. We're going to thread on an A and go through the first A sticking up, which is going to be this one right here. So when you finish that, it should look just like that. We're going to thread on an A and pass through the next A, sticking up. And then we're going to thread on an A and pass through the B that is sticking up. When we come out of a B, we always pick up 2 B's. So I'm actually just going to flip it so I can work in the same direction. So I'm going to pick up 2B, and I'm going to go through the very next B. Again, we want them to sit like this, and they're going to help to form that V. We're going to thread on 1A and go through the next A sticking up, and 1A, and we're going to go through the next A sticking up. So that's going to be that middle one. Now, your inclination and your experience is going to want to say, throw another A on here. But that's not what we're doing. If you look at the pattern itself, you will notice that it is almost a zigzag position. So on one side, you'll be here. On the next side, you're going to be a little bit above that, 1 row above it. And this is where that kicks in, right here. So again, we don't go all the way to the end because now we're going to work back in the other direction. So when we go up, we're always putting on 3 beads. So I'm going to thread on 1A and go through. The second A and go through, and the third A comes through the B. So going up, we're always putting on our 3 beads. When we come out of the B, we're going to pick up 2B and come down through the very next B. But then when we work down, we're only going to be adding 2 of our A's. So 1 and 2. Now working up, remember, is 3 A's. So 1, 2, and 3. And then you'll notice there, I'm coming out here at the top where the B's are. So anytime we get to the B's, we're always doing 2 B's and going through the very next B. And as I work down, it's 2A. So 1 and 2. This is what is going to help us to continue to grow the length. But again, you'll see here, okay, if I hold my needle straight across like this, you have the longer one here. You see that right there, straight across. Each time we're going back or up 1 bead. So basically what we want to do is we're going to continue this for the length of our bracelet. So one more time, we're going to be picking up, going up, we're going to be adding 3 of our A's. So here's 1, 2, and 3. When we get to those B's, we're adding on 2 of our B's, and it's completely okay. You notice how I keep flipping it so that I'm kind of always working up and down. That's completely okay, or you can just keep it the same way. It's up to you. And now every time I go down, I'm only adding 2 of my A's. So 1 and 2. So I want to continue this until I run out of thread, and then I'm going to show you what to do when you run out of thread and how to add new thread. So you can see here I have this much of my length complete, and I'm running out of thread. I probably have about 8 inches left. So what I want to do is I'm always going to end after I've added my 2 coming down, and you can see where my needle or thread is left there. So I'm going to take my new piece of thread. So you want to cut yourself whatever you're comfortable with, but you want your new piece of thread, and when I thread the needle, I'm only going to pull through just a little tiny amount of thread, not a whole lot of thread there. Because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to come up through that bead that I'm coming out of, so that when I pull this through, my new working thread is exactly where it needs to be. So I'm just going to kind of hold that in place right there, and then I'm going to work this thread through the stitch itself, and you'll notice I'm kind of going up and down through beads and at a diagonal here, locking this thread into place so that I don't have to worry about the thread coming out. So I'm just locking this new thread. Now, if I pull this and I pull it hard and this thread moves, that will tell me that it is not locked into place good, and I need to continue to work this thread through and lock it in place. But I just seen that it is not moving. So all I'm going to do is just come to a place that I am comfortable cutting this thread off. And then I'm going to take my thread zapper or my scissors or whatever floats your boat, and I'm going to get rid of that little short piece of thread. So now I'm going to take my old tail thread, the little short piece, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to work this thread through and get rid of this tail so that now I have a new fresh thread to work with, and I can just keep going. Once you have the full length that you need, then when you finish your last row, we're going to start up and we're going to work up till we get to the B's. So I'm going to do my 1, 2, 3 stitches. And now I'm going to thread on 3 B, the first part of my clasp, and 3 B. I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to come down through the very next B, just like I normally would. And when I do that, it's going to look like this. And I'm going to work my next 2 stitches. So 1 and 2. I'm going to work back up and I'm going to add my 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and when I add the 3rd one, I'm going to go through the first B of the 3 here that's on this side. Now, there's 2 ways you can do this. You can either go all the way around to come out of this one, or you can take your needle and just bring the needle down through this bead right here. It doesn't matter. Either way works. This just pulls this top together a little bit more like that. I'm going to work my 2 stitches. So 1 and 2. Now I'm going to work my 3 stitches back up. So 1, 2, and 3. And this time I'm going through that second bead there of those 3. And then I'll go through to come out the other side. So this is a little reinforcement there of that clasp area. And then I'll work 2 stitches. Now technically, I am done with the clasp and the bracelet. But what I would do before I finished off the thread, I would stitch up back up through the beads and I would reinforce this here a few times and then finish off this thread. Now on this other end, I'm going to take my stop bead off and then I have my needle threaded. So what I want to do is I want to be coming out of this bead right here. So I'm going to pass down through the bead right next to where I'm coming out of, and the bead below that kind of at a diagonal, so that now I can come up out of that bead exactly where I need to be. So I'm going to pick up 2 of my A's, the second part of my clasp, and 2 of my A's. So 2, 1, and 2. I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to come right across and I'm going to come down through that bead right there, so that when I do that now, you can see there how that is evened out and it looks really nicely finished. So at this point, what I want to do is I want to pass through the beads so that I turn around and reinforce. So just passing through these beads in a manner that I can get back through that bead now, and then I can go through and I can reinforce. Just like that. I'm going to reinforce this a couple of times. So now this time what I might do is I might just pass through the beads of the V shape here at the beginning. To get back across. Just like that. And then go through those again. So I'm going to go through these several times and then I'm going to finish off this thread so that I will have both ends complete. So once you have those threads tied off, you'll see now how the ends of this bracelet look. To me, it's a really nice finish on the piece, and honestly, the mixes are the star of the show on this. They're really, really fun to use. Now, if I wanted to make this wider, which you can definitely do, you'll need to, instead of the start down here, remember where we used 4, 2, and then 5. If you want to make this wider, you could do like 6 beads on this side, the 2B, and then on this side, you could do 7B, or 7A, I'm sorry. So 6, 2, and 7, or 8, 2, and 9, depending upon how wide you want the project. It's done exactly the same way. You just add the width in the beads that you want. And remember, one side will be an even and the other side an odd. So I hope you now know how to do your diagonal peyote in this thin bracelet form. So guys, I hope you enjoyed learning how to make this thin diagonal peyote stitch bracelet. I do have the step-by-step instructions on my website at offthebeadedpathbeadstore.com, as well as all the bead mixes that you saw in the video today. So I hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.